Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Hi, welcome to the COB. Great to have your company this Monday afternoon. Let's have a look at where the local market is finishing the day's session, and it's been quite a bit of a choppy session on the local market, and we're closing down by around 0.5% on the CBO 200. We were expecting a bit of a flat day. Instead, after the worst November in a decade, we got a pretty weak start coming through, a soft start, if you will. But another focus for investors has been this ASX publishing outage. So we had about 80 companies that couldn't actually update on the market. We have had an update from the ASX in the last half hour or so. They say that they did implement an initial system remediation in response to the technical issue. Cash equity trading platform was fully operational, and all announcements that were lodged after 11:22 Sydney time, they say, have been processed. They're of course working closely with listed companies to publish impacted announcements, but it all just really gave a little bit of a wobble to the first trading day of the week, of the month, of the final month of the year. And of course, it is the Fed's moment as well. We are expecting very much that there will be a rate cut this month on the 11th of December. Jay Powell is actually going to talk tonight, but of course that won't be about the Fed's monetary policy because they're in blackout at the moment. Let's have a look at what we're seeing in terms of the overall sectoral moves today. Healthcare was hit quite hard. CSL down by 1.7%. Cochlear also off. Now, Cochlear actually backed Epiminder that we spoke to at the top of the three. That interview is on our website now. A really fascinating conversation with the CEO, Dr. Rowan Hoare. They are creating a device that you can put on your head if you have epilepsy, and it will actually track what's occurring with the neurons in your brain and really try to hope to monitor and I guess help provide a better I'm losing my words, but a better, I guess, treatment plan for somebody who might be in risk of having a seizure. Really fascinating company. You can find that on our website. All right, let's have a quick look at what's happening in the energy space as well. We, of course, had global crude oil prices down on Friday. Investors considering oil's geopolitical risk premium amid this drawn-out Russia-Ukraine peace talk. And, of course, then we had the OPEC Plus meeting over the weekend. Santos up by a third of 1%, Woodside up by 1%. Looking at the banks as well today, they are all lower. CommBank down by about 0.4%. Macquarie Group down by 0.7%. Metcash, well, it was hit as well. It did, though, see a small rise in profit for the half year, but shares down by more than 9% on the outlook. Treasury Wine also hit by that impairment charge to the US. I spoke to Henry Jennings from Marcus today about this. Doesn't seem like they are drinking enough of our plonk over there. NextDC climbing though, it raised its full year 26 guidance. The ASX, of course, impacted by that outage, and APA signing a joint development with CS Energy to develop the proposed Bigelow power plant in Queensland. Elsewhere, Ramsay Health up, Macquarie eyeing stronger revenue indexation. And then we have it, Epiminder debuting on the ASX. It raised $125 million in its IPO. Shares were valued at $1.50. They finished today at $1.34 on a down day. Let's welcome to the COB Mark Gardner from MPC Markets. And Mark, you've been looking at Truth Social. What's happening?
Well, more via x.com to be honest. Yeah, there's a lot of chatter going around at the moment about Venezuela and a military build-up, closing of the airspace, and Trump talking, some fairly threatening words to do with, the potential military action or something again, or thereabouts against Venezuela. So I think that's why we've probably seen a little bit of an uplift in gold today over the course of the session. I think the S&P and the Nasdaq futures are down 1% at the moment, but that primarily happened earlier in the day. It's been drifting lower, but risk assets definitely taking a bit of a hit. I think Bitcoin's off about 5-6% as well. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that we sort of drifted off on any sort of uncertainty on top of further fairly rich valuations, uncertainty around the Fed, and possibly pricing in a bit too much optimism on a Fed rate cut. I dare say the market's potentially probably just pulling its head in a little bit and just reassessing how much, because last week was 5 or 6% up in the indexes on the back of nothing, or really just a repeating news story of one Fed member talking rate cuts. So that could easily get taken away, fairly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you talk about gold here coming up, but also silver, and you've raised your silver price targets.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was about September this year, late September this year, we did the COB, and I brought this chart along, and that's where the start of the green is there, and the gold-silver ratio, with the old target was, gold was about 3,800 at the time. And we were looking at that price target around up around 37%, but obviously gold now at 4,300, and so yeah, we're looking for $70 now, and there's the likes of some of those smaller silver miners, Andean Silver, and Polymetals. But they obviously had that mine incident, but they may recover. But the just to get back to the 50-year average, which is around the 60 mark for the gold-silver ratio, silver should be around about $70, and I think it's up about 7.5% since Friday afternoon, basically. So all the US session and then into today, up another 1.5%. So it's really broken high now. 58, we got to today for the first time in history.
That's crazy, because when we went through 50, we were like, wow, and now you're going 58 and getting to 70 maybe.
Yeah, I think it will at minimum get back to the gold silver, 50-year average, which is around that 70. It does have a tendency to go on some serious runs. I think the last couple of runs have been 400 and 700% in 2008 and back in the late 70s. So, I mean, when it does get a wiggle on it does really go quite hard. And platinum as well is starting to play a fair bit of catch up. It was up about 7 or 8%. Unfortunately, there's not really many options for platinum, but you can do the ETF with the physical in that ETP MPM, I believe, or MPT. Which is an option there if you just want to trade the physical.
Yeah, and what did you say was your stock pick as well?
And in silver at the moment, it was around about, well, it was probably 10 or 15 cents higher the last time we were, I think when we were at 56. So we're at 58. I'd expect some fairly major catch up. It's producing. So ASL is picked there for the moment, and for the US. PAS silver, PAAS silver, is not too bad either. It's not too many silver miners really in Australia. BHP does produce it, but it's a footnote or not even a footnote in the annual reports. So they tend to be more African or South American.
Okay, so what else should we be looking out for? If we're having a wobbly start to December, it was a pretty terrible November. We had our Cyber Monday today with a couple of picks of people thinking some of these stocks that are heavily beaten down should be picked up. You mentioned Andean Silver, but where else are you looking? We bought some WiseTech at the start of last week. We also started dipping our toe in the water in Technology One, because I think the AI stocks here in Australia were pretty beaten down and didn't get any of that uplift last week. I think that it's the AI thematic that's a little bit wobbly. There's that circular financing of all those deals started to, analysts have really started to pick at the seams of how legitimate a lot of these payments are and this revenue is. But I think the Australian market, we got hit pretty hard. We went from 9,000 and we fell at least 600 points, if not 700 points. So I think there's some value around in the Aussie market. But look, I think those metals and precious metals are going to continue to do well. Copper as well is, I think LME copper's at new records. And US isn't at the moment, but I think we cracked through 11,200 on Friday as well. So I think the mining and resources sector is still fairly decent, I think, overall. And probably just be a little bit patient. We've been saying sit on some cash, wait for some bargains. You don't have to spend all your money all at once. Christmas is coming, so. Tell that to my credit card. 8565 on the ASX 200. What's the likelihood of a Santa rally and back to 89 or 9?
I think that probably. I'm going to say no. I think that when the US sneezes, we tend to catch a cold, and I think that I've got some concerns around the US this month particularly, and because I think I think it's probably a line ball for a rate cut, and we're pricing in 85% for a rate cut in, and then even if they get a rate cut, it'll likely be some fairly hawkish rhetoric. So Bank of Japan today, bond yields went through the roof. They're talking hike, and Nikkei's dropped 2%. We've got inflation here as well. Like the central banks tend to look at what's going on in other economies, even though the US is the big dog. They've put in a bunch of tariffs.
Yeah.
It's highly unlikely they're not going to have inflation, and we still haven't had those PCE numbers that were supposed to be this Friday night, but it doesn't look like we're going to get them this Friday night either. They're not on any of the calendars, but we'll wait and see. But I would imagine if they can't get up-to-date data, I think it's probably a little bit irresponsible to be cutting rates just on spec.
Yeah.
A month doesn't make a huge amount of difference, but you never know because they're all lobbying. There's a bunch of people lobbying for Chair Powell's job, so there might be a few pushes on the board voting as they try to put their hat in the ring.
That would be such a tough job. No thanks. All right,
Yeah.
Mark. Thank you very much. Mark Gardner from MPC Markets. All right. Well, of course, we talked about AUB and that was the stock of the day. And Andrew spoke to our experts, Kai Chen, also from MPC Markets, and Mathan Somasundaram from Deep Data Analytics.
Don't think here, when a dancing partner walks away, you want to hang around. The cycle is probably turned and consumer spending is going to tighten and things are going to get tight everywhere. And so in that context, and yields are coming off because of global growth, and these guys all make, all the insurance products make money off yields. So if yields are going lower, their margins are going to be under pressure. So I think it's time to take profit. And yeah, if you miss the takeover bid and it's now off, I would still take the money and go somewhere else.
But yeah, no, I think in terms of the offer, it had a fairly low chance of getting through, and it's not surprising it's come off 16% today, basically just taking out all the premium that's from the takeover. So, if you look at AUB as a company, it's okay, it's in the middle of the pack in terms of the insurance company. So if you hold it, you're doing an insurance play. If you think it's going up for insurance, then hold it. But otherwise, I'd get rid of it.
All right, let's have a look at some of the leaders in the session today. Greatland Gold up there, and of course a lot of those gold players, South 32 as well. Iron ore futures coming back in Singapore. To the downside, I think we've touched on AUB quite a number of times today. Metcash as well after its update. Interesting, Timble and Webster. I did get a couple of Black Friday, Cyber Monday emails from them. They're down 8%, $14.47. All right, tonight, the US ISM, oops, I forgot the small caps. Caravel Minerals had a good day, up 17%, and some of the silver players too, which is to Mark's point that silver's at $58. Let's have a look at the laggards, Pacific Edge, Hancock and Gore, and there we go, Epiminder, the new one on the blocks, down 11% on its debut, did raise $125 million. I found that interview with the CEO fascinating, the effect of really trying to treat epilepsy here. You can find that on ausbiz.com.au. All right, let's have a look at tonight. US ISM Manufacturing Index for November. Fed Chair Jay Powell speaks at Stanford University about his economic policy contributions as he rounds out his career. And then tomorrow, building approvals for October expected to come in lower from the prior month. The balance of payments for the September quarter too. We're also going to get earnings from Collins Foods, the operator of KFC and Taco Bell, and then Bank of Queensland holds its AGM. It is a down day. Mark was mentioning those Twitter nervousness on X, Truth Social, whatever it's called now, down 0.5% on that news that President Trump has been posting about Venezuela, and futures are lower by around 1%. So not a very solid start to the month of December actually, aren't we? Whoops, this year is going very, very quickly. 49 points, 0.6% lower on the S&P ASX 200. 8,565 points is where we finish. We will do it all again from 9:45 a.m. Eastern. I'll remember what day and month it is, I promise. We'll see you then.